It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is one of the most famous liners of American history as astronaut Neil Armstrong first stepped on the moon. Within the context of the 1960s, as the Cold War was occurring, there was a serious tension between the Union of the Soviet Republics, also known as the USSR, and the United States of America. Both nations felt the need to compete against each other for political power,
while on the very brink of a potential nuclear war.
Therefore, it brought forward a series of multiple events and competitions between the two, including one of which we have known as the space race. The Apollo 11 moon landing was determined to be the turning point of America's history, as it demonstrates not only the US advancements in space technology and science, but it also affected the political relationship between the US and the USSR at the time.
The US and the USSR were in a conflict about political beliefs, capitalism versus communism, and which is more economic, technologically, and intellectually superior, with both sides spreading different forms of propaganda to support the belief that they were better than the other. The space race started in 1957 when the USSR successfully launched the first man in space, also called the Sputnik launch. With the USSR having the lead, it was causing trouble for the US. In 1961, when President John F. Kennedy was giving his Congress address speech, he stated,
"I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth."
Asserting his statement, he spoke with NASA to establish the Apollo program. Apollo 1 happened on June 27th of 1967, but it tragically caused the death of the crew. The tragedy helped NASA re-examine all aspects of the spacecraft and training, taking their time to prevent other tragedies. Apollo 8 happened December 21st of 1968. And headed into the trajectory of the moon and returned, which caused the Soviets to get shocked and wondered how the US caught up to them so quickly. The USSR denied the existence of there any being a space race to the moon. The main players in the Apollo 11/moon landing are John F. Kennedy, who started and was the driving force of the Apollo 11 program, which was also called like the moonshot goal. NASA was another factor, managing the Apollo program in terms of training all Apollo mission crew and conducting tests for every aspect of the missions. And the Apollo 11 crew, which consists of Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins.
On July 16, 1969, the Apollo 11 was launched from Cape Kennedy, Florida, manned by Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. 3 days later, the cosmonauts had landed on the moon safely, thanks to the coding and programming done by Margaret Hamilton, a software engineer who designed the code for the lunar lander. More than 600 million people all over the world were watching, all silent as they watched Armstrong on board. The moon landing was being broadcast live almost everywhere, except in the USSR, North Korea, Vietnam, China, and East Germany. Descending from the Eagle, the lunar lander for the crew, the plaque of the latter was marked with these words.
First step foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD. It came in.
That first step was followed by the most famous words of U.S. history, and the U.S. had won the space race. It was not only a symbol of American dominance or superiority, rather it was a sign of how humanity could unite to reach for another world. After collecting all the Apollo 11 crew needed, the crew returned to Earth safely on July 24, 1969, and were put in quarantine for 21 days. Upon their return, the crew was celebrated as heroes almost all over the world. Surprisingly, the USSR congratulated the crew and acknowledged the moon landing in one of the news columns, Pravda.
The immediate reactions to the Apollo 11 mission were marked by widespread celebrations across the United States, as people felt immense relief that the astronauts had safely landed on the moon and returned. Global pride soared, with the mission demonstrating American technological achievements and inspiring people around the world by showing the potential of human innovation. This historic achievement led to new space policies and legislations, such as the NASA Authorization Act, which governs space exploration and research. The two main groups that were affected were the Soviets and the Americans. For Americans, Apollo 11 boosted national pride and confidence, inspiring many to pursue careers in STEM fields. For the Soviets, it initially intensified the space race, but tensions cooled. After the Apollo 11 mission, the world experienced significant changes. The Apollo program's technological advancements, specifically in computing, materials science, and telecommunications, are used in various fields which help with the development of new products and companies. For example, space communication technologies led to satellite companies like Comsat and Intelsat, which improved global broadcasting and the internet. Scientifically, the mission provided new insights into the moon, increasing our understanding of planetary science. It helped position the United States as a leader in space exploration and influenced future missions and international cooperation. The mission also intensified the space race rivalry between the USSR and the US, marking a major victory for the US in the Cold War. However, it eventually led to a greater collaboration like the Apollo-Soyuz test project in 1975, which helped lessen the Cold War tensions and create the beginning of a more cooperative space exploration effort. Scientists and engineers from both sides, Russian and American, benefited from the valuable data provided by the mission, which advanced our understanding of space and helped create technological innovations that continue to benefit many industries today.
Overall, the Apollo 11 mission still continues to be a major turning point to U.S. history as it helped to vastly shape the political relations between the U.S. and the USSR, or nowadays Russia. It focused not only on technological advancement or scientific findings, but also how competitive and resentful another nation can be when trying to establish itself as a world power. Also, the moon landing proved to be another U.S. victory, which unexpectedly brought out an eventually less hostile attitude towards Russia, a nation with values so different than its own. This teaches that even the fiercest competitions could end in some unity, and ultimately that the U.S. is willing to do everything it could to secure democracy's survival.